that raised a concern here.
Okay, I'm trying to go through all the issues that you've mentioned in turn. One of them was whether criticism of the department was a sufficient basis. The second one is the one that I just raised, that it went further, which doesn't strike me as intrinsically a persuasive basis for not disclosing things, since the U.S. government routinely will release things that go further than what has previously been said publicly. And the third thing is, according to the reports, including, I think, a quote from one of the emails, was that the FBI had seen the talking points and had not itself raised concerns that they might prejudice its investigation. So I'd be interested if you could address on the merits each of those three things, whether the potential for criticism, the fact that they simply went further than what had been said publicly before, and at least what has been reported, that the FBI did not raise concerns that this release would, I mean, this is a concern that was raised by the State Department, not the FBI, might prejudice their investigation. So why are those persuasive reasons to have argued for changing the talking points?
Well, let me start by just reminding you that these were CIA points. They were CIA edited. They were CIA finalized. So the ultimate result of this was the best estimate at the time of the intel community. These were issues that were raised, and I would refute the notion that it had anything to do with criticism. I mean, if you point to, I know this is separate, but obviously even the ARB itself has endless amounts of criticism for how things were handled, and that's something that we readily embrace and have used in how we implement things moving forward. There were two issues that were raised. There's been some confusion about, from this handpick of cherry-picked emails, kind of who was responsible for what. There were issues that were raised, but again, to go back to the bottom line point here, these were CIA points of the intel assessment at the time. They made the decision about what the final points were going to include. They did include information at the end that we later learned was inaccurate. So they were reviewing just a few days after the attacks what our best assessment was at the time, and it's not uncommon for an interagency process to take place as it relates to broadly to talking points that go to members of Congress.
I thought the decision, and maybe I'm mistaken here, so please correct me if I am, I thought the decisions about what would finally go into them were made by the deputies committee. Is that not correct?
These, again, were CIA talking points.
I know that, but that's not my question. My question is, was the decision on what would be included and not included ultimately made by the deputies committee, or rather by the CIA at its sole discretion?
I can't parse that any further. These are decisions that these were one prior to my arrival here, but also that were made out of this building. But I'm just pointing you to the fact that these were started and ended as CIA talking points.
If you're going to say that it is ultimately the CIA's responsibility, as you're suggesting by saying that they finalized it, then I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask, did they have the final cut on this, or were they in fact finalizing it based on instructions from the deputies committee? If you're going to say, hey, this is their fault, then it needs to be fairly understood whether they had sole responsibility for the end product, or whether they were just carrying out the instructions that they had gotten as a result of an interagency process.
Again, I'm not attempting to place blame here. I'm just attempting to trace you through what these points were, where they originated, and how they ended. In terms of other questions about what happened in a meeting that I wasn't a part of, that's something you'd have to direct elsewhere.
Last thing, you said that you